What happens when the most powerful military force on Earth launches a decisive strike on a nation long suspected of nurturing nuclear ambitions? But still, after the dust settles, the nuclear material doesn't disappear. That's not just a strategic puzzle, it's a haunting global dilemma. This story begins in shadows, built over years of international suspicion, intelligence briefings behind closed doors, and escalating rhetoric from podiums across the world. Iran's nuclear ambitions have never been fully confirmed, nor denied in a way that gave the world any peace of mind. And when the United States finally took action, decisive, high-tech, coordinated, the world held its breath. The exterior view of this geopolitical machine is impressive. The United States rolled out its full military design language for this operation. Aircraft carriers in place, long-range bombers fueled and armed, satellite intelligence feeding real-time data to operational command rooms humming with calculated urgency. Drones hovered silently, almost invisible to the eye, like ghosts watching over a battlefield before it even begins. The exterior of this operation was as polished and commanding as you'd expect from the world's most expensive and advanced military. Every angle was covered: air superiority, cyber warfare, stealth insertion teams, strategic communication blackouts. This was not a skirmish. This was a declaration from above. The strikes hit with precision. Enrichment facilities, missile development centers, and deeply buried bunkers, once thought impregnable, were targeted with bunker-busting ordnance, developed over decades of experimentation. The sonic footprint of each blast echoed not just across Iran's territory, but across geopolitical alliances worldwide. But even as command confirmed hits, even as footage from satellites and drones showed the incineration of infrastructure, one thing became clear: the nuclear material didn't vanish. And here's where the performance review becomes sobering. Because, as impressive as the exterior is, what matters is what it achieves. The operation did damage, no question. Dozens of facilities were destroyed. Research timelines were crippled. Scientists were displaced, but it didn't reach the core. The nuclear material, uranium stockpiles, centrifuges, maybe even weapon-grade material still existed. Some had been relocated, some had been hidden too well, some perhaps were never fully known by U.S. intelligence in the first place. The performance here is nuanced. Technically a victory in military terms, strategically more ambiguous, and psychologically possibly a failure, because uncertainty is what breeds fear. The interior, if we can take a quick peek, shows something even more complex. Inside Iran, the people now navigate a country scarred by foreign strikes, but still breathing. Infrastructure is weakened, but not destroyed. Leadership, while shaken, remains. And within this internal mechanism, there is resolve hardening. Among those who were previously moderate, the narrative has shifted. What was once a debate about national priorities has become a chorus of defiance. The strike, meant to halt nuclear progression, may have inspired more determination to see it through. This isn't a tale of good versus evil. It's a system evaluation. And that's where we have to ask, what is the United States really capable of when the mission isn't just to destroy but to change intentions? You can't bomb an idea. You can't drone strike away nuclear knowledge. The fissile material might still exist physically, but the true weapon is always the human will behind it. Let's talk about maneuverability. The U.S. acted alone, with some silent backing perhaps, but without a global mandate. That agility is part of its strength. It can pivot, strike, vanish. But that independence comes at a cost. International trust is shaken. Alliances are tested. Even friendly nations have to recalibrate their stance. Was this a preemptive defense, or a reckless assertion of dominance? Maneuverability is excellent, but it demands elite precision and judgment. In this case, the judgment, while confident, may not have been complete. Durability is another aspect. Can the United States sustain the political and diplomatic consequences of this strike? The domestic front is divided. Some cheer the blow to a perceived enemy. Others fear the precedent of striking without absolute certainty, of igniting a larger regional fire. In Iran, durability is different. The nation has survived sanctions, isolation, and now an outright attack. but its internal cohesion might either crumble under pressure or harden into a more radical shape. Either way, the system absorbs the impact, which makes it harder to dismantle. Now let's evaluate the threat detection systems. U.S. intelligence, as we've seen for decades, is both advanced and fallible. It may have overestimated what could be destroyed and underestimated what could be hidden. Iran, on the other hand, seems to have learned the lessons of Iraq, Libya, others. Decentralize, conceal, distract. When you look at this like a defensive system review, Iran has maintained more capability than expected. That's a performance. Worth noting, not just for its ingenuity, but for what it means in the bigger picture. Let's touch on fuel economy, metaphorically speaking. This operation costs billions. Financially, yes, but also in global political capital. The United States burned through goodwill, strategic patience, and its image as a rules-based actor. There's fatigue now not in the military machinery, but in the global audience. That's the cost of acting unilaterally in a multipolar world. Iran, by contrast, spent less, but gained more in the propaganda arena. It can now tell a story of survival, resistance, and Western aggression whether or not that story aligns with facts. That's a fuel-efficient propaganda engine, and it's running hot. Let's shift focus slightly. There's always a temptation to ask, what happens next? And that depends on whether the world believes the mission succeeded. That's the psychological performance score. Did the U.S. achieve deterrence, or did it demonstrate limitations? Right. Now, analysts are split. Some say the strike showed overwhelming American power. Others point to the survival of key nuclear material and say the mission is incomplete. Public response is a mixed bag. In the West, there's both relief and unease. In the Middle East, there's fear that this was just the beginning. Russia and China have watched closely. They've seen how the U.S. strikes, how quickly, and how its justifications shift depending on the moment. They'll be adjusting their own policies accordingly. It's the ripple effect performance. It may be subtle now, but over the next decade, this moment could become a pivot in how the world manages nuclear deterrence and regional power. Now, let's briefly examine interior atmosphere against meeting in on Iran's post-strike governance and social response. Within cities, blackouts and resource shortages follow the bombing campaign. But so does a wave of nationalism. What was once a fragmented society under economic strain has found unity, not in love of government, but in hatred of intrusion. That's a dangerous unifier. It consolidates power. It radicalizes. It accelerates underground cooperation with rogue allies. You don't destroy nuclear capability by force alone. You need an interior collapse of belief. Hasn't happened. There's also a material issue. Nuclear substances aren't stored like hard drives. They're hidden, shielded, split across sites. Destroy one, and the rest may scatter like seeds. The fear now is not what Iran will do next, but who else might gain access. There's chatter about material transfer, about quiet handoffs to proxy forces. The operation, while bold, may have created a black market bloom. It's a catastrophic performance demerit in any intelligence community review. Back in Washington, the narrative is being spun carefully. Officials highlight operational success. They show destruction metrics. But they avoid direct answers about whether Iran's nuclear program was neutralized. That ambiguity is telling. It means even the architects of the mission know the real outcome is incomplete. And so, here we are, looking at a scorched surface and a still-burning core beneath. The United States struck with full capability, with global attention. Nuclear material still exists. The knowledge remains. Intentions are likely more resolute. In terms of exterior presence, few rival America's projection. In terms of short-term performance, the mission scored high on execution, but low on strategic finality. And in terms of interior review from the soul of Iran to the halls of D.C., the results are still unfolding. Some say this was a warning. Others say it was a mistake. But almost everyone agrees this didn't end the nuclear threat. It just transformed it. The lesson might be that strength doesn't always equal success. And firepower doesn't always extinguish ambition. The world now waits, not in silence, but in murmurs of retaliation, of escalation, and of unfinished missions. The vehicle of war was impressive, but the road it drove down is still fogged with questions. And until those questions are answered, peace remains a moving target.